Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on today's webinar on India's Digital Personal Data Protection Act, the CISOs. Today, we are joined by two esteemed speakers here, Dr. Ravi Lingarkar, who is a VP Product at Takitra. Dr. Ravi brings 25 years of experience from the product, from all the acts and the product intricacies, and he also has a PhD. Then the next speaker is Santu Chakravorty. He is director at Takitra, and he brings over 20 years of experience of the industry. Like he meet a lot of CISOs on a daily basis. So I welcome both of you and everybody who's joined here today. And over to you, Ravi and Santu.
All right. So welcome everyone again. Thanks, Akriti, for the introductions. So as a company that's focused on compliance and GRC and automation, I mean, we find this as a great opportunity to connect with our ecosystem. And largely what we are going to do here is we are going to make sure that we share the best practices, the knowledge that we have from the industry. We've broken down this presentation and this discussion in largely two parts, which is one is about what is happening in the industry in terms of the best practices that CISOs and the compliance teams need to follow. And then there's a lot of myth that we will be busting. We'll be looking at like what is the reality versus what is like a hearsay. That's the whole theme of the discussion. Ravi is an expert in building companies, products, and has been very close to the governance, risk, and compliance and cybersecurity space. So, Ravi, if you can talk about how we are going to add value to this discussion. Yeah.
Thanks, Santu, and good morning, everyone. And so myself, again, I'm the VP of Products at Akitra, and we are an international company. We are a fairly big team in India, and we've been doing compliances for God knows how long. And we do 40 different frameworks, and we do compliance under 4 different categories: security, privacy, AI governance, and quality. So we have been dealing with hundreds and thousands of customers. So we can share real practical advice related to DPDPA. And the thing is about DPDPA, I think India has done a terrific job getting this rolling, because most of the transaction, if India has to do transaction with the rest of the world, or the rest of the world has to do transaction, this is the missing piece where you have to trust, and the rest of the world has to trust sharing information. So this is the final piece for, there's a lot of transactions happening in India, UPI and other things, where you're actually dealing with the government and other entities that you're willing to share. But now businesses have to share information among themselves and with the rest of the world. And DPDPA is the final thing, that piece of the puzzle that needs to get rolling. Agreed? So we'll have a good discussion regarding DPDPA through practice. We've done a lot of frameworks, so we'll share some of our experience, how we can get it done efficiently and in an efficient manner. So.
Sure. Yeah. So I think, Ravi, one of the things that starts is like, where are you in your journey? So we'll kick it off with a quick poll for the audience here. And the question is, where are you in the DPDPA journey right now? I mean, and it's just like, you don't have the regulation, like it's not like I mean, deadlines are all fixed and we'll be covering that. But what is your preparedness around it? That's the question. So options are there. And what we ask our audience to do is just the option A, B, C that you see here. If you can share that in the chat window, we will analyze it and we'll share it when we share the recording and all the material for this. We'll give it like 30 seconds for this. So once again, where are you in the DPDPA journey? What is your readiness right now? Do you have a plan? Is it implemented? Is it in process? Are you looking at tools? Yeah. Okay. So I think the question is clear. And then if you can just share your option, we will just summarize that. Okay. All right. So let's dive in. Ravi, I think you can kick it off. Like what's
Okay.
DPDPA,
Thanks,
how
Santu.
CISOs looking at it. Yeah.
So in the next few slides, I'll try to simplify everything. It works for all compliances. This DPDPA is related to privacy. So to make it very easy, it's related to digital personal data, right? So what you have to do, the first thing you do is you have to be able to explain what kind of data you're capturing, and for what are the reasons you're getting the data, and who else you're going to share the data with. So if you look at DPDPA, let's say, take a simple example. It's an e-commerce site, and you're buying stuff from the e-commerce site, and the e-commerce site is going to send goods and services. So the person buying is the data principal. The e-commerce site is the data fiduciary, that is a holder of your information, and that data fiduciary may be sharing that information something else, somebody else, and that one could be a data processor. So it's good to understand those terms. So as a data principal, you're collecting all that information. So you have to be able to explain why you're collecting that information, how long you're going to have it. And then once you collected the information, you got to know how to protect it. And there are a number of ways to protect it, securing encryption and backups and resilience and all that, and maintaining logs, and making sure, you're deleting stuff that you don't need. So, and then you say you're going to do that, you also have to prove that you're actually doing it, and that's where you have to pick up evidences. Those controls are in place, and if the purpose is served, then you have to delete the data, and then in case there is a breach, you got to maintain. You have to report within 72 hours, so you have to have an incident response plan and things like that. So at a very high level, this is exactly what DPDPA requires. So let's go to the next slide, Santu.
Yeah, Ravi, I have an interesting one here. So there are scenarios, uh, real situations, right? Like you get a transaction alert, an OTP or something from a card company, but you have not made the transaction, and it is your card and all that. So is the card company responsible for this? Like, can you hold them accountable? And under DPDPA, will there be an act? I mean, will there be a
Yeah, exactly. They are a data processor. They can't be
right
when they share it.
responsibility and
Yeah,
accountability there, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. They have to be careful about sharing, and it's the people they share with. They should not misuse that.
Yeah. So consumer has right to raise
Yeah,
a
yeah.
suit around it, right? Yeah.
So there could be a grievance. You can get those grievance addressed. So okay,
Right. And it's the company's responsibility, right?
okay. So just to understand where we are in the DPDPA journey. So currently, this in November, the first part is going to be there. The consent manager. Consent manager is an independent third party. The data principal is going to manage the consent related issues with the data. The data principal is going to share with the data fiduciary. That's what the consent manager, Rule 4, Section 6(9), is going to roll in place in November, and then by next year May, all pretty much the whole thing has to be implemented. So there's not much time out there. So most companies have to start working on it right away, I think. And we're helping a lot of these companies. So
Yeah,
we'll
this
share.
is important. I mean, I was recently at a GCC conference in Mumbai, and then there are the panel discussions and stuff. I mean, so I think there's a lot of this discussion, which is what exactly is the deadline, what is the preparedness, what you need to prove to the regulatory body. That I think it's not very clear yet. I mean, there's a lot of discussion. So I think the compliance teams have to get on top of it, right?
Yeah. So just to add to what Santo said, we have a lot of experience at this thing doing compliances around the world, GDPRs, California Privacy Act, and across in Philippines and things like. So we have a good experience what is required and how to interpret this. So we'll be sharing it as the presentation goes through.
Yeah, and this is going to be a journey. I mean, just like there are these new deadlines that the law states, but then in terms of how you set it up for the company, that also is a journey, like what now versus later, right? So that
Yeah.
also is important for companies to
Okay.
understand.
But you don't have to panic. It's pretty straightforward. We have done these privacy things around the world. So
Yeah.
let me just quickly go through the essentials of DPDPA. And basically, what you do is you have a lot of data. You have to understand the purpose of that data and do a data inventory of that, and then address all those consent issues, withdrawal, when whose data you're having, and what are the consent issues with it, and when withdrawal workflows associated with it. Then how long you're going to have the data, and how when you're going to delete it, what the process is. Are you sharing the data with the processor out there? If it's and then what are the safeguards you're putting in, and if you're actually sharing with the processor, you got to do it a third party vendor risk management. And there are issues with children, and when you're getting information from children, you have to do age verification. And if you're a significant data fiduciary, you have some additional obligations, like you have to have a data privacy officer and things like that. So, but this is the essentials, and I think Santu is dealing with a lot of CISOs out there in India on the ground, and I wanted him to address some of these hearsays out there. And Santu, maybe you can consider.
Yes, yes, definitely. So I think this is very common. I mean, which is like as we get into a lot of these discussions with our customers, prospects, etc., right? Like in even the partners, right? So the discussions are around like what is really DPDPA and how we need to be like addressing it here, right? So one of the common things is that this is just India's response to, or India's GDPR, which requires you to be accountable for customers' data, how you're handling, how you're processing, if you're a fiduciary, if you're a controller, if you're a handler of data. That's not, completely true. I mean, yes, it is on the structure there, but it requires definitely a more structured approach to how you're addressing the compliance requirements and the guidelines, right? And the other thing is around this whole confusion around the timeline. When is it that you need to be putting together the structure and reporting it to the regulatory body? And when is it that they can come back and fine, right? So those things are there.
Just
And
to add to
also,
it, it's more than GDPR, Santu.
yeah,
It's a lot more than GDPR. There's all this consent, the breach reporting issues. There's a whole bunch of things. It's just not GDPR. So
yeah.
it's go
And,
ahead.
and it's not just like cybersecurity control. I mean, it's the thing is that as the law says, the data protection, right?
Yeah,
Of
you need
India.
purpose, right? Deletion and
It,
all that.
exactly. So the extended, and we work closely with our partners, the independent auditors, the CPA firms, and all that. So we see that there's a whole lot of process around this whole consent management, how you're handling the data. So that has to be structured in a way that you're able to prove your compliance back to the authorities, as well as if there are any grievances, how you respond to it, right? So you definitely need some kind of a system structure in place. It's humanly impossible for you to have that kind of control. So, and I think a very basic thing is what you cannot delete what you cannot see, track, and measure and monitor, right? So that is the whole fundamental around security. How do you keep all that in your visibility and you're able to address it? And it is not one-time project, right? It is a discussion when people say just set it up, just like many other regulations, you just need to give a certificate and all that. But GDPR is a continuous process. Every now and then there can be issues. Once it becomes a law, I mean, it is already a law, and then it becomes like something where there can be penalties to the tune. There will be cases every now and then, and companies need to take it very, very seriously. Yeah.
No, you'll be evolving as a company. You'll be collecting more data, and so and then you'll be deleting. There's going to be consent issues. You'll be responding to, this thing of people asking questions about what kind of data you have. Can you erase my data? You have to be responding within certain time period. So it's a continuous, ongoing project. So.
Yeah, and the most important thing is that you have to be associated in your ecosystem with the right kind of experts, whether it is your legal team or your technology team, who need to know exactly what the regulation and the control and the definition is. Right, Ravi?
Yeah, yeah. But let's not make it too complicated. It is pretty straightforward doing it if you have the right tools, and
Hmm.
you can be up there ready with when the when it's by middle next year, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And to this point, I just want to also underscore that we have shared a readiness checklist ahead of this webinar. If you have registered, you must have received a checklist, and that is a great way to get started. You can pick some of the P0 high priority items and come to that. And I think Ravi is going to talk about like how you uh, can kickstart your DPDPA readiness if you're not there already, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, maybe Ravi, you can talk
So
about the
yeah,
journey.
at a very high level, if you want to start the journey right now, so what you do is you just spend your time and what kind of digital personal data you're collecting. You just start collecting, you do a data map of it and understand, notice and consent, and also put what purpose you're collecting. Is there a way you can minimize? The more you minimize, the better for you. And who else you're sharing with it, sharing that data with? It's somebody else. It's like a hospital or this thing like a continuous glucose monitoring. You'll be sharing that information with somebody else, a lab or something. So you understand that, and how long you want to keep that data. If it's like, you want to keep it for 3 years, then what are you going to do after that? You're going to delete it. And so you have to have processes in place. And also you have to collect a lot of evidences with that what you're doing is happening. So you should have to have logs and things like that, so that in case something, if there's a breach or something, you can actually prove that you had processes in place to satisfy any probe associated with any breach. So the overall thing is, it's not a spreadsheet. It's a purpose-led record personal journey, a record personal data journey. So at a very high level, that's what DPDPA is.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's look at what DPDPA says. What does it demand? And let's see what the CISOs have to do. What kind of operational control the CISOs have to do, and what kind of evidence they need to keep. One of the demands is you have to understand what the specific purpose, and you have to minimize it. So for that, the CISO has to put an operational control, data classification, what product intakes and approvals, and those are the controls that need. And then those to say those controls are working, you have to collect evidence, the purpose map, field list, approval trail, all those have to be connected. So you can see, you can do this in a spreadsheet, but you see how cumbersome it becomes. So there are tools, we'll talk about it soon. So that'll help you do all this. So for example, consent, withdrawal, and rights, that's the DPDPA requires you to do that. So what the operational control is: consent log, DSAR, data subject access request queue, identity verification. If somebody makes a request, you have to identify who they are, and may probably do two-factor authentication to do that. So what kind of evidence do you require? Timestamp consent, SLA that you're going to respond in a certain period of time, closure evidence and all that, saying that you actually responded and the person received that information. So the same thing, what kind of security safeguards you put in, encryption and all that, and what kind of evidence you gathered to say those security safeguards are in place. So this is, you can see, this is a continuous process. It's not one time you put these things in place. You can actually monitor these things in real time, like on a daily basis. And if some, you can have rules. If something fails, you can get alerts, and you can immediately address it right away, rather than once in a year in a spreadsheet. You go and check once at the end of the year or something like that, and you notice it has failed long time ago, 8 months ago, and nobody's bothered to go and check into it. And the other part is, uh, let's look at the processor. You're sharing information with the third party, so you have to actually do third party vendor risk management, and you also, they may be accessing, your data principles, digital data. So you have to do user access reviews. So these things, it cannot be done in a spreadsheet. You need the tools to do third party vendor risk management, user access reviews. So you have to have all these things in place.
Yeah, I think this is big. I mean, this keeps coming up in all the other compliance and security requirements also, Ravi. Like, how
Yeah,
do
exactly.
you
So that's
ensure
where,
the
yeah,
dependency on third party and the other
yeah.
things, right?
Yeah, it looks pretty imposing, but if you have the right tools and the right way to get things done, it's very simple to get all this accomplished.
Right, right. I mean, not just doing a compliance checkbox, but it also helps you be more secure and be more on top of the to-dos, right? If you have this control.
Yeah, yeah. Just before, yeah, Santu, you can go to the next slide.
Yeah,
Yeah. So this is a quick slide, and if you actually want to, uh, as I said, DPDPA is very focused on looking at customer data. So where would you find these data? In customer apps and marketing, HR, employee data. Even employees are kind of customers of the company. So you have to be. It's applicable to even employees of the company. So you see how big the mandate is, and you could, as a company, you could be using dozens of SaaS providers from Salesforce, HubSpot, name it. So you have to think about where the data resides. Those are the places. Then children, and if you're using AI, the prompts you're sharing, what kind of information you're sharing, and then if you're a significant data fiduciary, there are some additional obligations. So maybe after you can go to the next slide.
yeah,
So
yes. I
before
think yeah,
Yeah, before I get see, one of the things about doing this DPDPA very efficiently is to have some kind of automation tool. And Akita does have an automation tool, but you don't have to use Akita. You can use any tool. But generally, let me tell you what it brings. And but before I start that, explain what an automation tool provides. Why exactly are you doing compliance? One of the main reasons for doing compliance is you build trust with your customers, and that's to help you sell more. So it's not just because you want to satisfy some regulation. It's cumbersome. It's a waste of money. It's just overhead. That's not true. If you are compliant, more people will do business with you. So that's one reason. So if you have a so now if you agree with that, then the best way to is to reduce the cost associated with compliance. To reduce that cost, it's better to use an automation platform. Now, what do you get in the automation platform? Typically, all automation platforms work very similar. There, you have a framework. That's the compliance framework. It could be ISO, it could be DPDPA, one of the frameworks, and you say you're going to comply to that. So you got to have controls in place that whatever the framework demands, you're going to put those controls in place, and that the platform will provide those controls, a library of controls, and then the platform will provide you with all the tools required to collect the evidence. So when collecting that evidence, some of them could be manual evidence. For example, you may need to upload some files or have board meeting minutes. Some you can have to actually integrate with systems and pick them up automatically through integrations. So that's where the platform comes in. For example, in case of you could be interfacing with the consent manager. It could be your own consent or it could be third, and you can say all the requests that's come in, you've all actually responded in time. That could be a piece of evidence that's attached to a control. So you can see all that manual effort that you put in, that you can do it automatically. It's all the time running. And then if one of the evidences fail, you can have something called a non-conformities rule that can fire immediately every 24 hours if you want. And then you can it will generate an alert, create Jira tickets and things like that. So you can go and immediately address it. Santa, I want to address now the other benefits of using this platform is once you set it up, it's ongoing. The very little effort is required to keep this
yeah,
moving along. And people may quit, but it's not in their head. They leave, and then you have to start the whole process again. It's there in some spreadsheet. It's on the platform, and then you can have things like typically what happens is this is related to privacy, but you could also be doing compliance related to security, and some of the evidences are common between them, so you can share those evidence rather than duplicating the effort associated with it. And there's a whole lot other pieces of benefits also, but these are the main benefits using a platform.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing there, and I'll differ from you, Ravi, on that. That they should definitely look at Akitra as a platform. As India Director for India and Asia Pacific, I urge my viewers here as well as the network to see how Akitra platform is fully integrated, and also the modules that you would need in your journey, as you said, the third-party risk management, the user access review,
Using
the cloud security posture management, how that comes together and makes it more. So uh, I know, I mean, you're being independent on this one, but I would say I definitely compare the solution, the platform, which is complete to support the entire journey, right? I mean,
yeah,
again, customers can review and compare it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But just to add to what Santo, no matter how you do it, use an automation platform. That's what I'm trying to say.
yes, yes, yes.
Otherwise, it's just going to be very cumbersome, very difficult. It's very expensive doing it.
Right.
We have evidence. We have thousands of customers. We have evidence to prove that.
Yeah,
So,
it's like that.
yeah,
I mean, if you have the systems in place, you're more organized, structured, and you pass through your audits cleaner, and even the auditors see that okay, you have everything in place, right? I mean, it's just that basic thing. Yeah,
yeah. What we do is we change a point in time compliance to continuous compliance. That's the spirit of a framework, like a DPDPA. It's continuous compliance. So, what does continuous compliance gives you is it actually protects you as a company in terms of breaches. Instead of somebody out on the internet finding it, you find the breach immediately and you can go and address it.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so this is a quick summary of DPDPA, how you can get it done efficiently. But if say you want to start on Monday, and you can pretty much get most of it done in 90 days if you follow this kind of routine. That's what we have done with other privacy frameworks and all that. So this is like the first 30 day you scope it and map all the data journeys and create a DPDPA risk register where you put in all the risk statements and you can, inherent risk and put all the ways to bring down the inherent risk to residual risk by putting all the things. So for example, you have data and then put some additional security controls so the risk goes down. And then in the next 30 days, you design and implement notice. Consent management is a big thing, part of DPDPA. You implement that and all those workflows associated with it. And one of the things you have to respond within 72 hours. You can't do it when a breach happens. You got to have an incident response playbook associated with it. And then you go about in the last 30 days, you automate it. So I think you can get a good handle of the whole thing in about 90 days. That's a kind of a thumb rule.
Yeah, it's like a check. It's like a scan period, and you see like how you can shape up your DPDPA journey, right? All right. So with that, I segue into a poll here again, which is what is the hardest part to operationalize? Ravi, if you can elaborate on this question, maybe a lot of our viewers are. Uh,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. So if you look at this poll question, it says there are these are the steps, pretty much many of these difficult steps involved in operationalizing DPDPA, and I'm just a poll question: is it data inventory, consent and withdrawal, retention and deletion, breach readiness of vendors and AI logs, dealing with vendors and AI logs? Just we just want to get a poll, and we'll share those results with you afterwards.
Yeah, and if you're not here, that's fine. But the practitioners, the CISOs, the leaders, compliance leaders who are already in the journey, maybe they can relate to it better. And if you can share your view on this, the option A, B, C, D, E, it can be more options also. We will analyze and share that when we share the recording in the summit.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So yeah, I think we can make it like more practical discussion about DPDPA. There are like some very commonly asked questions. We can go into that. Ravi,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
if we can.
So what
Uh,
Santu is on the ground in India, dealing with hundreds of CISOs. He's talking to them on a daily basis. There's a lot of myth, a lot of questions you got from the CISOs out there. So I'm going to ask some of these questions and let Santu, who's talking to them, you
yeah,
know,
based on my experience, like what I hear.
yeah.
Yes, sure.
And the other thing is, yeah, we'll share some of these questions and what responses what responses we got. So we'll share that. So one of the myths is Santu, one of the myths of the DPDPA
Yeah,
is just related to privacy policy rewrite or something like that.
right.
Is that true? That's the question you get.
Yeah, so I mean, what we hear is that policies are
Or
all
what do they panic? What are they supposed? The other thing is, what do they panic and why they shouldn't? Why they should not panic? That may be a better question.
right. So I mean, they should treat the whole this data DP, I mean, regulatory requirements around data privacy as a journey. I mean, it's like the data journey that you should be focusing on. So maybe, I mean, what I would suggest is that, and some of the mature organizations I have seen that they have like greater readiness, and what they do is like they have some sampling, they have some framework ready, and you should be treating this as a data journey in terms of like maybe you pick like the top 10 personal data journeys, like whether it is your third party, your onboarding system, your customer journey when they are interacting with your apps. Take some of these critical ones where there is the data, right? And you actually see and trace it through the entire journey, that where are the possibilities of a data leak, a data breach, or a exposure to a third party, etc. And that's where the other modules also come into picture and can support. So, and for each journey, what you should be looking for is like, what is the PII data? What is the purpose of it? Is this still in control of the organization within your premises, or it is actually going out of your control? And if so, then how do you keep a DPDPA compliance tag on top of it? Even if data is going to a third party, so let's say you're working with 10 different vendors, how do you keep a control on that visibility and control and your compliance check? Like you checkbox. I mean, you mark that checkbox, right? So I think that is important. It's not just that you write a policy and just put it there. That's what I would say. Ravi, if you can add to that.
Yeah, I think you answered. So let me ask you the next one, which is consent is a big part of this DPDPA. So
Mhm.
is it a legal document? Is it a security control or a product feature?
Yeah, I would say it is all three. Yeah, because I mean, because the premise and the context is given by the legal, but then product has to create the experience, right? And also security and compliance is has to keep the you have to keep that entire evidence, like entire audit trail of where was the data, where it left, and all. So I would say, in short, I would say, yeah, it is all legal. It has to be a secure by design product capability, as well as you need to have the control. I mean, often compliance is about, it's not that you're not doing it, you must be doing it very well, but then your ability to prove it to the regulatory bodies, that is where it comes to the test of the compliance organization, how you're keeping the record keeping, how you're presenting it, and all that. And I get into that all the time, Ravi. Even the larger companies, like 10,000 people company, they have a lot of spreadsheets flying here and there, and they have a system, and they are spending on the big fours. So it's everywhere.
Okay. Okay. So a big part of DPDPA is that you have to respond quickly when there is a breach. You have to quickly respond, and there are some time limits within 72 hours. So what do CISOs have to do to operationalize that?
Yeah. So again, I mean, I think when you have a system in place, you're able to trace it back, right? So for example, I think there was recently, as a pharma company, Striker, I guess, right? There was a
Mhm.
breach, right? And then it imagine, I mean, if that is an Indian company, I mean, that's a US company, but then they also have to respond to a lot of things, their GDPR and other, I mean, they have operations in almost all the countries. So the regional regulatory requirements apply there. Now imagine if that happens here, as of date, you're not legally bound or you don't go to jail for that. But in US, in Europe, in other countries, and even in Singapore, Asia Pacific countries, the DPDPA has other forms like PDP of Malaysia and Singapore, etc. You actually can go to jail. I mean, the CISO goes to jail. They end up wearing the orange suit, right? So what you need to have is, if it is a breach, once you have the system, you can trace it back if the compliance and the controls were there in place, right? The package should include even timeline. Like you should have all the date stamp timeline and all that to be able to prove to the compliance authorities. If you have taken those measures and controls, then you're good. But if you're not, again, you get into that system that, okay, you just accept and you apologize and all those things. But if you have the controls in place, you can counter that situation. So they don't need to worry if they have the traceability and visibility of the data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see the automation platform will help you with that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where it is. Like we get, I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, we also get requests from our some of our prospects at time that they would like to delete their data because they did not initially give consent to their data for that. But we have a system in place in our CRM, as well as by using our own tool, we are able to quickly trace it back. And my team, which is across US and India, they are able to quickly respond to it. And within 3 days, we even send a notification to the requester that, yes, your data has been deleted and we don't have it in the stream. And if you're not able to trace it, then that's where you get stuck, right? So
Yeah.
I would say it's the automation and the tools and traceability. Yeah.
Yeah. Then the other question that comes up all the time, like deleting data, seems like a privacy operation. So why should the CISOs care about it?
It is important, Ravi. I think you only mentioned, right? Like, I mean, it's an important component of the regulation, particularly in this DPDPA, which is
Yeah, you're increasing the attack surface if you hold unnecessary data. So that's the key. So CISOs have to worry about it, reducing the attack surface.
so what happens, and I'll tell you from my own experience, is like there's a S3 bucket, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of data that you have it on your cloud, right? And then you are now moving on, you pivoted into a new technology, a company which is, let's say, a 300 people SaaS company. They have pivoted into a new technology and all that. But the person who was owner for that, responsible for deleting that data set, has completely forgotten or left the company, right? I'm talking about my real world experience, right? And then that gets exposed. It is unattended, or your data, which I mean PII data, which is there in any of the other cloud hosted services, right? And the company has no clue about it, that that was also out there in open, right? But if you have systems in place which is tracing consent, which is tracing the purpose of the data, it is defined well, then you can always go back and do an audit, a self audit, and the AI in our system is able to even run that kind of scan and check for you. Yeah.
Okay. And one of the things, big aspect of DPDPA or most companies, when they're a data fiduciary, they're sharing with data processors. So isn't it a big risk? And how do they manage as companies? How do they manage the risk associated with data processors?
Yeah, I mean, end of the day, it is the data fiduciary which is responsible for processing and handling the data, right? And then the practical control set is it's the vendor inventory. It is like valid contracts. All of that you need to keep a tab on. Um, so anytime that a data handler, data fiduciary is sharing the data with any third party, they need to have that legal process covered between them. See, breaches are inevitable. I would say, I mean, in my experience of more than 20 years in cybersecurity and governance, risk, and compliance, even the biggest of the companies with the best of the tools, breaches happen. Even when you're not aware, there are like intruders inside the system, inside, etc. But when it gets reported, when, let's say, there is a news that your information is out in the open, in the or in the dark web, right? It's available. How do you prove your compliance and your all the check boxes that you show that it was taken care of? But it is like an act of uh, just like how you attack and other things, right? So breaches happen, but then you need to have that legal checks and balances and controls in place, that the control was tested, it was a pass. That is what the system and automation will help you do. Even if there is a breach, you have an explanation and reasoning around it. That's what I would say, Ravi.
Mhm. Okay. This is this is one question that I just thought about. So, Santu, one of the concerns CISOs have with DPDPA is it's going to cost a lot of money, and because there's so many things, aspects to it, and there's so many things you have to do. So, Santu, using an automation platform, can you just tell us, how you can save money? I mean, in terms of not money, in terms of getting it actually implemented in a very efficient way.
Yeah, so that's a common notion and initial thought to it. But I think the leaders, CISOs, CPOs, there's a requirement under the DPDPA to assign points chief privacy officer, the CTOs themselves in the startups, right? The founders themselves. They have been in situation and they know if it is not implemented well, if it is not set up well, you go through that cycle again and again. And very recently, we did it with one of the SaaS incubation companies who's been our customer for many years. And I spoke with the chief operating officer there, and he's an industry expert, like more than 30 years in the industry, and have built companies, right? Processes. He told me one thing that okay, I can go get a certificate for compliance, and that was a different compliance thing. But then that's not what I want for the organization because we will be working with several other SaaS companies. We will be incubating them. We will be providing them with all this ecosystem and support. We want the system to be set up right, like the whole automation, the process around it. And he knows that if he doesn't do it right in the beginning, there will be huge costs, like time wasted as well as the huge costs later. So I would say look at it as an investment to operationalize security and compliance and take the steps with like the priority. I mean, get your team together, have a pragmatic approach. What's now versus later? Because it will evolve. End of the day, it will evolve. So I would say expand into the the workflows that you have, the deletion evidence. I mean, be very specific about it. And can you do it manually? It is not possible because the guys that you're working with, they may leave in like 6 months for a better opportunity. You should have a system in place which has a login and it keeps all the data current, right?
Yeah, just to add to Santo, I have a slightly different perspective. You actually do compliance, you would probably get more customers if you have like a SaaS application. There'll be less churn. More customers will trust you, and you can actually, as a company, you can sleep a little better, and also you can charge a little more for your services. So look at this like maybe it's a small investment, but the returns are very, very high.
Yes, I mean, time to market as well as I've seen deals getting stuck at procurement level because of not having a required compliance certification or a report, right? Or even if they have it, it's not up to the mark. It
Yeah.
goes back into the cycle, right?
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, that is true.
Just to just to close it up, I think you can be ready in 90 days, and I just given a like a roadmap for that. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think this is good, Ravi. I mean, you covered
no,
some of the
my
major
objective is to
points.
make it simple. It looks
Yeah.
every time I talk to people are panicking, just talking, and not
Yeah.
really addressing the issue. I think I'm trying to simplify it so that people can go deploy it and transact with the world, and the world can transact with India.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah,
objective.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you have these type of control, you're right. I mean, just like you said, that when you have good compliance and ability to prove it to the your customers, partners, and your ecosystem, you can sell more and you're trusted more. Likewise, India
Mm.
can be trusted more with it, right?
Yeah,
Like when you
exactly.
have this
There's a
type of
lot of
approach.
business processes that India does for the rest of the world, and this is a big part of it. So for the rest of the world to trust moving data. So
Yeah, I think we are at top of the time that we had said, right? Like the hour here, Ravi.
yeah,
So
there's a
I'll
one
just end
final
it.
poll question. So
Whole question. Yeah. So where is personal data most likely to be hidden? And that is, I think, a common challenge. I mean, common question for all organizations. You don't need to know DPDPA for that. You can just respond based on your own experience, right? So is it the support tickets? Is it the SaaS apps? Is it the spreadsheets? If you can share this, we will be summarizing, as I said, the recording as well as the poll responses, and we'll share it with the attendees. Yeah. Ravi, any other comments, thoughts to share?
No. Let's do our part. Let's go deploy, help customers deploy DPDPA, and let customers deploy DPA and do a transact and with the world out there. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And then once again, I would mention that we have shared a readiness checklist ahead of this webinar. And if you have any questions about that, we can get on a quick call. I'm here based out of Hyderabad, India. I'm available. We'll be sharing my contact information as well with the registered uh, attendees, because that's where also we are following DPDPA, right? We're not just sending it to everybody. And we can even walk you through the automation platform, how that takes control. But you can do your own assessment with the readiness checklist that we have shared ahead of the.
yeah, it'll be good for you to get a demo of our platform, because we use a lot of AI. You can at least learn what we do. So
Yeah. All right.
okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for making time, joining us for this session. And feel free to contact us for any more details or demo, as Ravi mentioned. All right. Thank you, everyone. Akriti, you can close.
Splendid webinar session. Thank you, Santu and Ravi. I think it was very insightful, and I believe the audience is also, we're getting lots of comments and, poll answers. So I'm totally looking forward to sharing a compiled report, which is actually very practical and insightful for the people who attended here. Thank you, everybody, for taking our time for this session. And we hope to do more of these series. If you have any comments and suggestions, what we should do, please feel free to connect with us. Thank you.